In this video, we're talking about how Sony is bringing the PS4 back and why. Then I'm going to talk about how Sony wants the PS6 to be solar powered, and this is real. And finally, coaster discs are here on the PlayStation 5, and it's thanks to, you guessed it, Xbox. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. These videos are technically like a podcast where I go over all the biggest PlayStation news. So if you want to stay up to date on all the latest stuff in the PlayStation world, make sure you're subscribed with your notifications set to all. All right, let's jump into this first news story here because the PS4 is back. Sony just released a new software update for the console. And if you look at the patch notes, it's the classic, it updates performance and stability. They don't really tell you what it does, but if you dig a little bit deeper, it really comes down to the fact of PlayStation 4 jailbreaking. Now, this is an old thing. I did it in high school on my PlayStation 3. My friend Sean came over after we cut open our PSP batteries to jailbreak our PSPs, and he was like, we can take it to the next level and jailbreak our PS3s, and you can just install any game you want. I actually was able to get Dead Space Extraction up and running, and then I wanted to connect to the PSN to get the free games that happened after the PSN outage, and I couldn't because my console was jailbroken and there was a new patch, so I had to re-update my console to the right firmware, and I was lucky, right? Like, Sony didn't catch me, but if they did, they could have taken away my entire PlayStation account, and it would have been a big deal back then. But if this happens during the PS4 era, or even the PS5 era, which we're in now, if you lose your PlayStation account, you're losing all of your games. And there's a lot more games in people's PlayStation accounts now than there were during the PS3 generation. So I'm glad I only had it jailbroken for a week, because that could have been a potentially huge mistake. There is a whole ethical dilemma on if it's okay to jailbreak your console. Like, on the one hand, yeah, you bought it, you gave your money to Sony for the console, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. But on the other hand, stealing games is wrong, and I understand that completely. And, you know, they have a right to protect their online infrastructure, right? Like, if there is a jailbreak that allows you to connect to the PSN, you could hack into any game and just screw up the multiplayer, like we see in Call of Duty or Red Dead Online all the time, because developers are always trying to figure out how to stop people from cheating. There's also other things that could happen, like your PSN account could be hacked. I don't know. Jailbreaking is good on the one hand, and then there are plenty of examples of how it's bad on the other. I don't really care at the end of the day because it doesn't really affect me all that much. One big benefit of jailbreaking, of course, is that it helps with game preservation. Like with the PS3, you can't play PS3 games natively on any console except the PlayStation 3, and those are bricking left and right. Like, these things have a finite life cycle, and when you don't support the games going forward, when the console bricks, unless you have things like PlayStation Now or emulation on PC, there's no way to access these games going forward, and that's a legitimately bad thing, because PS3 had some great games. And, you know, going back and watching old movies is awesome. That's what I do most of the time. New movies don't really speak to me right now, so I've been watching stuff like Copland. It's amazing. I've been watching Westerns. I've been having a great time with old movies, and I'd love for gaming to be as respected as movies, and the only way that's going to happen is if the history is preserved. So in lieu of being able to play PlayStation 3 games on an actual PlayStation 5 console, you can understand why people would want to jailbreak these machines. But this is all just a lesson for Sony, in my opinion. Like, it's clear that they want to keep PlayStation as an ecosystem, where they want to keep the old console around as long as possible, because you're keeping users in your ecosystem, they're spending money, you're getting that money at the end of the day, and it's a business, so you want to keep that money flowing. But if you're going to keep these old consoles around that have access to the PlayStation Network, it is on Sony to continually come back and make sure that these jailbreaks are patched, right? Like, it sucks for the people who are jailbreaking their machines. I really do feel for them. But when you have an ecosystem and an infrastructure like the PlayStation Network that's really held together with sticks and duct tape, as we've seen over the past year or so, where it goes down relentlessly, sometimes for up to a weekend or a couple of weeks at the worst, you got to make sure that you keep it safe, secure, and protected, because no one wants to deal with having problems with the PlayStation Network, because they're paying for it at the end of the day. And when people continually hack it, that causes issues where when they do their measures to fix it, it ends up hurting the people who aren't hacking, because they have to introduce things like DRM or extra anti-cheat, just extra crap to wade through before you actually get into your game. And it could result in features that are potentially very cool not being implemented, because the more features you add into online games, the more avenues hackers have to get into them. It's all this big nebulous sphere of introducing weird problems with console hardware that I don't think Sony really thought of when they decided to keep the PlayStation 4 around as long as they did. And And just knowing that the PS6 is right around the corner, just 2 years away, if all the rumors are to be believed, I think it's time to just completely sunset this machine. Obviously, if they went ahead and blocked it from accessing the PlayStation Network and the store and everything like that, they'd run into a big PR issue, just like they did when they announced that they were sunsetting the PlayStation Store for the PSP and PS3. But like, we can't have 3 generations of machines being supported. We can't have the PS4, PS5, and PS6 be the supported consoles, because that's not only bad for PlayStation Network security, which security is what it really needs to work on, it's also bad for innovation in gaming at a point in time when innovation is at an all-time low. I'm playing a game called Atomfall right now, and like, on the surface, it's a AA open world Fallout light game. It feels like Fallout 3 mixed with Elden Ring, because you're just exploring small maps and figuring out a story, but it feels innovative because when you jump into this world, there's no quest markers. You have to explore and hunt through every little house and nook and cranny to figure out what notes you need to read to figure out where to go. And that's like genuinely innovative. And honestly, it's not that innovative in the grand scheme of things, but because innovation is so low right now, it feels revelatory because it's just genuinely something new in the Fallout 3 style of open world game. And I don't like that we're at the point where something as small as not giving you quest markers feels like refreshing to me. And when you're supporting a console that's as old as the PlayStation 4 is, you're holding gaming back. We got all these great advancements in tech like the SSD, the higher processing power, the better GPU, but if you're trying to support a console that's as old as the PlayStation 4, it puts an artificial wall in place that you literally cannot pass to actually take advantage of the PlayStation 5. And that's why a lot of the big upgrades we've seen in the PS5 generation are better textures, better lighting, and 60 FPS, but never anything really pushing gameplay forward. And if you look at the sales numbers of games like Dragon Age the Veilguard or Assassin's Creed Shadows, it's clear that you're just getting diminishing returns. Like, yeah, Assassin's Creed Shadows did sell really well on PlayStation 5 at launch, but if you look at the Steam concurrent numbers where they're also bragging about its sales, it's doing a little bit better than something like Dragon Age the Veilguard, but if you compare it to big games like Monster Hunter Wilds, it's not even close. It's like what comparing an indie game to a AAA game, what you'd usually see. So we need to figure out some way to sunset the PlayStation 4 and get those users to upgrade to the PlayStation 5. And the only way I think you could really do that is innovate in your gameplay. Give people a reason to upgrade beyond 60 FPS and better textures and lighting. Like, we're going to hit that singularity point where the developers actually have to try and do their jobs and make new experiences instead of just churning out the same cookie cutter stuff over and over again. And I don't understand why they don't want to do that. That should be the only reason you're getting into gaming, like to be a visionary, to be an innovator, like Naughty Dog and Insomniac and Sucker Punch all were during the PS3 generation. Like, there's still that spirit there, but like, I see it fading as time goes on, and I don't want to see that continue to be the norm. So yeah, they're going to continue upgrading the PS4 to stop jailbreaking, but the only reason people are sticking around on the PS4 is because they don't have a reason to upgrade to the PlayStation 5, and that's the problem Sony needs to solve. But speaking of being innovative, on the hardware side, Sony is definitely innovative, which is another reason why I'm bummed out people aren't moving to the PlayStation 5, because the DualSense is awesome, and it looks like they're going to add some really cool tech to the DualSense too. So Sony likes to patent new controller tech. We just talked about how they're working on a little motor inside the controller that will heat or cool it based on what's happening in the game, and I think that could be a really cool immersive feature. But this one, I think they're going to run into some problems. So what Sony wants to do with this is cut down on the amount of time you have to charge your controller, which makes sense because, you know, the DualSense, its biggest problem is its battery life or lack thereof. Even with the DualSense regular, you're only going to get 3 to 4 hours. And if you're playing a game that's using a lot of the DualSense features like the haptic feedback, the adaptive triggers, it's got reactive lighting on those 2 little light strips next to the touchpad, that's going to drain the battery pretty damn quick. And then on the DualSense Edge, I mean, like, you're lucky if you get 2 hours out of it at the maximum. Like, if you're playing a game that actually uses the DualSense, it's not going to be a great experience when it comes to battery life. So if they introduce this solar powered controller, it's not going to charge the controller because you're not going to get enough energy, but you'll be able to reduce the amount of time that you actually have to charge, and it'll make the battery last longer. Now, the thing I think they're failing to consider here is that the best place to play games is in a dark room, aka a room that doesn't have a lot of direct sunlight. So the best use case for this would be to have it charge your battery when you forget to plug the controller in. Like, if you have a TV in a room that gets sunlight during the day, it'll charge up the controller while you're not using the console. console, and then when you sit down at night to play games in the dark, you'll have a fully charged battery. Still, I think it's really cool that Sony is going out of their way to try and innovate in the controller sphere, because that's what helped kick off the Wii, right? Like the fact that it had that awesome controller that was a motion sensing controller kind of made that thing worth having, especially when you consider that the graphics in the Wii were like PS2 level, if not a little bit better, but they were around like GameCube or PS2. So what really sold that was the controller. But that brings me to the third news story of this video, which is Coaster games are here, and it's all thanks to Xbox. So this has been an epidemic over on the Xbox console for a long time. And what I mean by Coaster games is games that come out and you get the disc, but it's really just a license check for the actual game. Halo Infinite is a great example because they delayed it so long when it was basically done. The game that came on the disc was not a game at all. It was just something you put in your console that would tell the Xbox, hey, this person has the game, download it from the store, and then they'll be ready to play. The same thing happened with Starfield and its collector's edition, and the same thing happened with Indiana Jones. But knowing that Indiana Jones is getting a physical release on PlayStation 5, I assumed that they would actually put the game on the disc, mainly because it's been out since December, right? Like they've had infinite time to get these discs printed and just sit on them until April when the game comes out, but they didn't. Apparently, they're just printing discs that have a license on them, and then when you put it in your PlayStation 5, you're gonna have to download the entire game. And I honestly think there should be some sort of class action lawsuit with this. I think it's really shady to sell a disc and make people think that they're getting a physical game when in reality they're not. They're getting a digital game with DRM tied to it. Like it's just a digital game that has extra DRM at that point, like having a launcher on Steam for a game you already bought or something. And I don't understand why they're doing it. Like you're already paying for the actual disc to be printed with that specific art. So why not just go the extra mile and put the game on the disc? I don't understand why Microsoft and Xbox just can't be normal, right? Like they put out Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation 5, no disc. They put out Indiana Jones from Bethesda, has a disc but doesn't have the game on it. It just doesn't make any sense to me why they're so weird about all this stuff. I mean, it's got to be just saving pennies at the end of the day to not transfer the game to the disc from a computer or however they do it. But Microsoft, they're always first and foremost, they're ready to just move things around and mess things up just to call it innovation or pushing things forward, when in reality it's making everything just a little bit worse. I know I'm coming in a little hot on them lately, but like between this channel and DeckReady, like what they're doing with physical games, what they're doing with getting rid of console and putting their games on PlayStation a few months later, and then on DeckReady I'm always talking about how instead of just trying to fight PlayStation, which is what they've lost at this point, they're going to move on and try and fight Valve, which will inevitably somehow make Steam worse. I don't understand why they can't just implement a strategy that is do something original and new. Don't just copy who's already doing well with your infinite money. Come up with a new way to introduce gaming to more people, right? Like you don't have to screw up what's already working for everyone else to do what you want to do. It's hard, but they're Microsoft. I don't have to come up with their ideas because they're not paying me. It's not my job to come up with how to make Xbox profitable. And every example we have from the past couple of years or so is like leech off of what other companies are doing well. Like leech off of Sony for selling more consoles, leech off of Nintendo for selling more consoles, or with the Steam Deck. Oh, Valve came up with Steam OS. It's a great version of Linux that runs with a game mode that's a console style interface on top of the operating system. Why don't we try that with Xbox, since we have the PC market locked down with Windows thanks to all the business deals that we already have? You know, it's just like figure something else out instead of being 5 or 6 years behind everyone else and then coming in with a rushed product that doesn't really do anything as well as what Steam or PlayStation are already doing. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in this midweek update here on the channel. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.